My name is John Block, and I'm executive producer at 4A Games.
So, first things first, can you just set up Exodus, where we've come from the last two games and how we've got here in terms of story, timeline, etc.?
Well, so the main change to, well, the main difference in story, the main progression point here in Metro Exodus is that the past two games have taken place entirely within the Moscow Metro system. There's been a couple times where the player has gone up to the surface and explored around, but the majority of those games were taking place underground. And in Metro Exodus, you finally get to step out of the bounds of Moscow and outside the bounds of the Metro system. And the journey that the player will experience over the course of Metro Exodus will span an entire continent and an entire year. So there's a load of new different environments and places to explore, new societies and ideologies and different people, different mutants, loads and loads of new variety coming to the series.
In the presentation, it was said seasonal spanning journey. Yeah. Obviously, where we've seen it today, we start in the winter. I assume that as we move across, we're going to see different kind of, are we going to see like rain and all that kind of thing? Because you've got a new dynamic weather system and everything as well, right?
Yeah. So when we say it spans the course of a year, that means that over the course of the year, you'll see different seasons in these different environments. And we do have a dynamic weather system. So in certain environments, depending on the season, you'll see different weather affect that environment as well.
And you got a day-night cycle as well.
Yeah, and a day-night cycle. So you'll be able to see in-game time days pass. You'll be able to advance time yourself using a sleeping mechanic at rest points, where you'll also be able to use a workbench to customize all your gear.
Is it harder to nail the mood and the atmosphere when everything's dynamic in terms of you could be going there in the day? Like the other Metro games were very kind of scripted kind of affairs, if you know what I mean. Yeah, so I mean that's going to be one of the challenges that that we faced in bringing this more open style gameplay to the Metro series. Metro has always been very linear and crafted. In Metro Exodus, we had to now account for different times of day, different weather, different situations that the player can create for themselves, as opposed to situations that we've crafted for the player. But it also opens up a lot of opportunities for us to allow the player to have more choice and to create that variety. Approaching a bandit camp at night will be different than if they approach it during the day, because maybe the bandits are sleeping and it's dark, so you can use stealth strategies. But during the day, they might be roaming around, but there might be less of them at the actual camp because they're on patrol. So there's different choices that the player can make to take advantage of these situations, and we've tried to make sure that as we're crafting these experiences, these dynamic experiences, that we're trying to take into account as many of the different possible scenarios that we can think of that the player can come across. Basically, you've got it's a new generation. It's like a revamped engine. What have you been done to the engine since? Was it 5 years ago, the last game? Yeah. It's been about 5 years. Yeah. So we've always tried to keep the 4A engine as cutting edge as possible. So we're constantly doing things to upgrade features and technology. For Metro Exodus, because we're adding these big open spaces, we had to do a lot to overhaul things like the render to be able to handle lighting in these big open spaces, outdoor and indoor, the dynamic weather system. Systems like that we had to overhaul mechanic-wise, for gameplay, things like, the new customization system. The whole weapon system was rebuilt from the ground up. Everything completely new to support this new modular system for player customization. What was the choice to go open world and dynamic as opposed to doing this kind of the handcrafted experience that you've done before? So I think some of it was a mixture of, the team has been in this world of Metro and in linear gameplay for quite a long time now, and we wanted to do something different and kind of like flex the team's muscles. And there's all the experience that we could draw from the core team members that had worked previously on Stalker, having experience doing open world games. Wanted to kind of
bring that experience together with what we've done in the past in the previous Metro games, and kind of see what we could do with it. There was also requests from fans to kind of do this, to open it up and add more freedom and more choice, and so we kind of got inspired by our own experience and requests from fans.
So we got a new generation, we got a new crop of gamers. They might not have played the other games. I mean, are you doing anything to kind of ease them into this? Can new players just jump in at Exodus, or do they have to go back and play the others?
Yeah, certainly. The goal for this game was to make sure that we're doing something new and interesting, but also maintaining what our fans expect from the Metro series. It is still a Metro game at its core. It is still very story-driven. And so we do also, with that, have opportunities to make sure that a new player coming in won't have to, necessarily catch up on a lot of things, from the past. We'll be able to make sure that the information is still going to be there for players to understand what they're stepping into, and tuning the game to give players options so that our more hardcore fans will be happy, and some of the new players to the series will also, I think, enjoy what they're going to sit down to.
In the presentation, there was a little bit of talk about choice and consequence. Can you kind of give us an example of how that plays out in the game?
So we're not going to go too much into detail right now about some of those systems, but there are systems in place that will kind of react to the player's actions. The player, and similar things have been in the previous Metro games, and we have kind of expanded on that this time around. There were alternate endings in the past, and now there's going to be kind of a new level of responsiveness, you could say, from the game based on player actions. We want the player to step in and fill the shoes of Artyom. We don't want Artyom to already be a defined character that the player assumes the role of. We want you just to truly step into his shoes and be, like, define who Artyom is through the player's actions and choices. And
Glukowski's still helping with the story and everything, right?
Yeah, we've been working very closely with Dimitri to develop the story, the overall structure and themes of the story, all the way down to specific dialogues. So he's been very involved in the entire process.
What's his angle? Because obviously he wrote the books many years ago, and then turned into games, and then the games have always kind of gone past the books. Like, I mean, how is his input helped kind of direct the franchise?
Well, so he's had the original book, Metro 2033. And the game Metro 2033 were pretty closely aligned in story and content, and then his second book, Metro 2034, was not the inspiration for Metro Last Light. We worked on an entirely original story to continue Artyom's story from Metro 2033, and we worked directly with Dimitri in developing that. And his third book, Metro 2035, is the precursor to the story of Metro Exodus. So they're still connected, very much so, but it's not quite the same connection of Metro 2033, the book and the game, where they were basically the same story.
So the franchise staples are there, like the scavenging, the ammo conservation stuff, but you got some new mechanics. Can you just kind of run through a couple of the new mechanics and like why you decided to put those in?
So in the first two Metro games, we had an economy system that was based on bullets. So you could get military grade rounds that you could put in your weapons for more damage, or you could choose to spend those to buy weapon upgrades, kind of pre-baked weapon modifications and customizations. In Metro Exodus, this didn't really fit with the more open style of the game. We don't have traders sitting around waiting for the player to come to their shop and trade. And we wanted to give the player more choice and customization. So now you're able to customize your weapon in the field, use resources that you find to craft ammunition and other things like med packs and throwable weapons. So it kind of came out of a necessity of game design, and also fictionally, the idea of this ammo currency works within the Metro system. There's a society built up there. In Metro Exodus, we're going out into the wild. There's different places, different societies, different structures that aren't necessarily going to follow to the same ideas that were set up in the kind of society that was set up within the Metro system. So it's it kind of came out of both fictionally and design necessities to change that. And we think at the end of the day, it actually offers a lot more opportunity for the player.
Are you shooting for, is it 4K 30, 4K 60 on the One X and the Pro? Is that what you're shooting for?
Our target right now that we're talking about is native 4K on Xbox One X, and that's what we're hitting today. It's what you're playing.
Are you going to have like a performance mode as well? It seems to be the new thing these days, that you either have resolution mode or performance mode, whereas one's 4K 30, one's 1080 60.
We haven't worked out all the details of how we're going to offer some of that choice to players, but we are trying to target something that's comparable in what other people are doing.
Is it tricky these days having to develop for what is essentially 5 consoles? You got the One, the One S, the One X, the PS4, the Pro, and then you got the PC on top of that. Is it quite tricky to manage that?
I guess it can be, but we've from the ground up, we wanted our engine, the 4A engine, to be multi-platform and to support each platform in the best way possible without creating a situation where we're porting anything from one platform to another. There's no lead platform. So our engine has that strength where we're able to make sure that we're taking full advantage of every single platform in the best way that we can without sacrificing anything. Metro Exodus will release February 2019.